You're on the road beyond. Welcome. I'm Todd Duplantis, and we're live from the HCC TV studios this afternoon. Good to have you with us. Good to be here on this Monday afternoon. My co-host, Doug O'Brien. Of course, he works for Houston's Eagle. Had to work there today, so he's doing double duty right now. Doug, joining us from the Houston's Eagle live studios. Good to have you with us, Doug.
I'm happy to be here in all the places where I am.
Happy to be here. A good weekend. I know we got back from vacation. You know, usually when you get back from vacation, I don't know about you, but it takes me about 2 weeks to decompress.
I was lucky that we got back on Thursday, so I had Friday and the rest of the weekend to do exactly that, because you're right. You almost need a vacation from your vacation most of the time.
Yeah. And that's a real thing. Apparently, it's a thing. You know, Doug, another thing is people can find us in social media, and we'd appreciate if they do so.
Absolutely. You can find us at the Road Beyond Podcast. Just type that in on all the social media sites, and we'll be there.
Right. Make sure you follow and share our show. We appreciate all the support. You know, Doug, if you're watching the news last week, the big news last week, everybody was talking about the incoming president's cabinet that he was picking. Bad person, good person. It was all over the news. But what amazed me was, for the third time, Congress had a UFO hearing with some pretty big takeaways.
It's interesting. It kind of flew under the radar, if I may.
It definitely flew under the radar. A couple of things to take away from it. UFOs and aliens apparently are real. Take a look at this.
Crazy.
Briefly, do you believe, just for the record, that the federal government, any part of the federal government, is knowingly concealing evidence about UAPs from the public?
Yes, sir.
100%. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. I also want to just go down the line. I know many of you have already said this, but I just, for the record again, just briefly, what do you believe UAPs could be or are?
Strong evidence that they are non-human, higher intelligence.
I echo my colleague's comment, sir.
Genuinely do not know.
Don't know, but we must find out.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate those answers, gentlemen. I think this is obviously another.
Pretty amazing, though, when you think about it, Doug. I mean, we've been waiting all these years. Then just nonchalantly, these three guys, you know, one of them, former Department of Defense official, goes up there and says, yeah, we got things flying around our sky. We think they're otherworldly. Not once does it make the top of a newscast.
No, and they really didn't give any details.
No.
So it's just like little morsels of, yeah, it's out there, but we're still not going to tell you exactly what it is.
Well, if you missed the congressional hearings, which most Americans probably did, unless you're like us, here's a few takeaways. Congressional Committee Chair Nancy Mace asked former Defense Department official Luis Elizondo, now, of course, he's been making the rounds everywhere. She asked if the government is in possession of advanced technology made by off-world non-human intelligence, a crash retrieval program, and reverse engineering from the objects retrieved. His answer, he said yes to all three. Doug, we also learned of several government employees. This is mind-boggling. Several government employees who are out on paid medical leave now because of problems, health problems they got from allegedly working with these UFO pieces they have.
You know, it's always been rumored that they had the technology, that they reverse engineered it. If you just look at the influx of technology we've had since the 1950s. It makes a lot of sense.
It does. Go ahead.
I've also heard, though, that the reason a lot of it hasn't been put out there just straightforward is they don't think we can handle it as a society. They're just not ready for it. And if this election gives any idea, that's absolutely true. We would not be prepared to meet beings from another galaxy. We're not ready for that.
Well, there's also some speculation that these aren't beings from another galaxy. These are beings that are here. They've been here, and they're not necessarily physical, but more spiritual. So let that blow your mind. Wow. There was also talks of recovered alien bodies that the Pentagon collected many years ago. The Pentagon apparently has this UFO retrieval program called Immaculate Constellation. And one thing they're saying, this is really scary. These alien being, interdimensional, whatever the heck they are, they can mess with our nuclear weapons.
Well, I don't know that that's a bad thing, though, because
Yeah,
I
could
don't
be
know
why
that
they're
we're
here.
so great with our own nuclear weapons. So I don't mind having an outside party kind of refereeing this thing. That doesn't scare me as much.
Well, there is speculation that Trump may release more information in his promise to make things more transparent. So that could happen. Pentagon stepped out right away, though. Pentagon does what the Pentagon does.
Yep.
They said, quote, in a statement, the Pentagon Department said they have not found any verifiable evidence that any UAP observation represented extraterrestrial activity, nor has the department discovered any verifiable information to substantiate claims that any programs regarding the possession or reverse engineering of extraterrestrial materials have existed in the past or exist currently, end quote. So that leads me to believe it's absolutely true.
If they're denying it, then it's true without a doubt.
Yeah.
But I heard it put best by, I don't remember who the comedian was, but he said that our world to other aliens, other beings out there is like that area or neighborhood you drive through and you lock your doors. That's how we are to the rest of the universe.
That's what they're doing now. Zooming by Earth, lock the doors.
Yeah, don't stop there.
They're crazy. Hey, so you and I got back from we didn't go together. We didn't have that weekend in New England we always think about.
Right.
But you went to New England like a few weeks after I was up in New England. I love studying history, and I know you're a history buff too.
Yes. There's so much, not just with history and the architecture, but then it's the residual history, if you will, that's still there, still celebrated, and still kind of kept alive in many different ways.
I had some kooky things happen when I was up in the Northeast, but several years ago, I think it was in 2016, I went to Colonial Williamsburg for a vacation. And this book caught my eye, and I picked it up. It's called Haunted Historic Colonial Williamsburg, Virginia, with Breakthrough Ghost Photography. When you open the book up and you look at some of these pictures, the author apparently did a 2-year study around the Williamsburg area. He's going to be our guest in a few minutes. But Doug, he was able to pull up some images or take some photography and start zooming in and getting some pretty incredible revealings. If you had a chance to check out the links I sent you.
I did. I took a look at that. I took a look at some of the photos, and I also enjoy photography as a hobby. So I'm fascinated. I can't wait to talk to him because I've heard so many stories of images and spirits appearing in photography and in photographs. I can't wait to hear about his experiences.
Well, he's authored several books since then. He takes people on tours to teach them how to do this themselves. His name is Tim Scolion, and he is going to be on our show up next. We'll be back in 60 seconds.
When I grow up, I want to work in a lab to build robots.
From classroom to career, we're with you every step. Register for real-world education at hccs.edu.
Things could be stranger, but I don't know how. I'm going through changes now. Could spend a lifetime trying to figure it out. I'm going through changes, through all of the strangeness. I'm going through changes now.
Where's your emergency?
And you're back on the Road Beyond podcast. Good to have you with us. Todd Duplantis here live at the HCC TV studios. My co-host playing double duty. He's over at Houston's Eagle, Doug O'Brien.
How's it going? Yes, I'm taking care of things here. As a matter of fact, got to keep an eye on the old computer over my shoulder, but yes.
Well, I know our guest is trying to log in right now. We had some issues with his audio, but if we can pivot for a second, because maybe we'll take a look at some of his books right now, because I'd shown you one. And since then, Tim Scolion has produced or authored several books on the subject of ghost photography. Now, Tim is able to get some incredible photography in his backdrop or his focus, the ghosts surrounding Williamsburg. And I don't know, Doug, have you ever been up to the Colonial Williamsburg area?
I have not. I've been to Gettysburg, but
Yeah.
I did not make it to Colonial Williamsburg. It is a fascinating place, and it's definitely on my bucket list, but I've not made it there yet. So I can't wait to hear about this.
Well, Tim has had years of experience with this, and let's show a few of his pictures if we could. Nathan is our director. I think we have one of them. He's still trying to get his audio working, but one of them was taken in one of the taverns, I believe, Shields Tavern, and this will just give you an idea of what Tim can do. Take a look at this. Now, this is obviously, you can see a couple of women there, and looks like two or possibly maybe even more if you look in the background. He is able to take photos. Normal people wouldn't see these things, but he can actually zoom in with certain techniques and see these things. A lot of people have come forward, I know, throughout the years, and they have said to him, like, you know, you're doctoring these pictures, these are problems. And he's actually battled this, Doug, by going out in the field with tourists and teaching them through his paranormal tours how to take these pictures. So, I mean, you go out with them, and some of them have, you know, it's one way to battle your skeptic. People come forward and say, you can't do this. And he says, not only can I do it, I can teach others how to do it.
That's what I want to know, because like I said, I love doing photography. I've done it for many years, ever since high school, but I've never had any of the crazy images appear that like he has. Part of me kind of wishes it would happen. And then there's another part of me that's like, no, it's okay. Stay at a distance. It's
Right.
all right. But it's just absolutely fascinating the way that spirits seem to appear in photographs, also on video, and
Right.
even radio frequency. So I'm fascinated by it.
Well, you know, Colonial Williamsburg, I mean, if you go walking the streets of Williamsburg, one thing you'll notice is just you immerse yourself in history. What they've done is they took a town, you know, Williamsburg at one point during our history was per se the de facto capital of the U.S. before it became the U.S. when we were just the colonies and we were fighting Britain. You know, so Williamsburg serves as the seat, the government, until it expanded after that. But for a while back around the turn of the century, around 1900, it was starting to just get run down. People hadn't taken care of it. And I want to say it was J.D. Rockefeller who jumped in and donated millions of dollars, which was a lot back then, to redo the whole city. And that's why when you walk the streets now, they have that, it feels like an old town, but everything is kept up so well. You know, you have a lot of the structures that have been rebuilt over the last century to bring them up to pristine condition, kind of like, I guess, you would look at when we went walking the streets of Boston.
Absolutely. I was just thinking that very thing. So
Right.
the amazing thing, too, is that it seems like when they do renovations and things like that, it tends to, dare I say, stir up the spirits
It could
in
have.
that area.
Tim has just joined us. Tim, are you able to is your audio working?
Problems with it. It wouldn't hunt for me for some reason. I must press the button about 20 times and it would not mute.
Looks like we can barely hear you right now. Maybe you can get a little closer to your microphone. I think we're having a little bit of audio issues. But Tim, we've been talking about your photography. Pretty incredible stuff. I want to ask you, how did this first start? When did you start getting this photography or able to notice these things?
About 20 that I was doing strictly.
It looks like we're still having some audio problems with Tim. Tim, we might need you to log out and log back in, and we'll let you in. It looked like we lost. Let's see. Any luck? Tim, can we hear you now? Let's try now.
Okay.
Yeah, we got
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we must. Yeah. Good to have you with us. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We wanted to go back and ask you, how did this first start? I mean, did you just one day, were you able to pick these things up? Do you sense them? How do you get them?
Well, it was back in about 2014 when I was doing historical tours. And this was just strictly during the daytime, but it was the day was ending, getting dusk, and we wanted to the photo of the place that I was talking about.
I think we're running into some other problems. Nathan, our director, is confirming we're still having some issues with your audio, Tim. We might need you to log in and log out and log right back in, and we'll let you back in the room. But we're unable to pick you up right now. I apologize for that. Doug, as I was mentioning about history with Colonial Williamsburg, it's mainly associated with the Revolutionary War, but we obviously had another major, huge war. The Civil War happened here in the States, and Williamsburg played a role in that. One of the interesting things is you would associate Colonial Williamsburg with simply, the colonial era. But what Tim was able to do with some of his photography was pick up some pictures he's associating with the Civil War era as well. We may want to show a few of those. I know we have a few of them, but if you look into the detail in some of these, the detail is pretty incredible. And he's proven these over and over that, no, this isn't Photoshop. These are images he's picking up that you wouldn't see with the naked eye. Can you see that one, Doug?
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah. Some pretty incredible stuff, that he's picking up with all of these. But it stretches across. And then he also has one picture, which I thought, let's see if he can get him back in here. Get him to join us again. He had one picture of himself that somebody taken with him. Tim, are you back? Let's see if we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we sure can. Yeah. We were just talking about how your photography stretches really across all the genres. I mean, colonial, Civil War area. But I found one thing interesting. You had a picture someone had taken of you with something next to you. Maybe you can tell us about that shot. We're going to show it.
Well, at the time, I was at the Williamsburg jail, and the jail was built in the very early 1700s. And some of the notorious people that it housed were the Blackbeard's crew. And as I was speaking about Blackbeard's crew and their stay at the Colonial Williamsburg jail right before their trial, that
looks like we're losing your audio again, Tim. I apologize. Let's see if we can get you again. Yeah, I think it might be the connection because it's frozen right now.
So, Todd, you mentioned that when you or on your trip that you had some weird things happen. What did you experience? Because I didn't experience anything there, but I did in Gettysburg. But I want to hear your situations first.
Well, we mentioned when I was in Colonial Williamsburg, it wasn't necessarily an eerie thing, but I'd been there when I was a kid, and I hadn't gone back in better part of 40 years. But walking the streets, I just had this familiarity of the place that I'd been there before, and not just when I was a child. I had that weird, eerie feeling, like it just felt like home, and maybe it was the attachment to the history, maybe the attachment when I was a kid, but it was just kind of a weird, comforting, but eerie feeling.
See, when I was in Gettysburg, I had a situation. I did not ask ahead of time, but I had always heard that the place was haunted, right? And I woke up, something woke me up in the middle of the night. And I'm not willing to say that was paranormal, but when I got up, you know how as guys, we'll empty our pockets before going to bed, right? So I just took everything, change and everything out of my pocket and put it on the dresser. But when I woke up the next morning, it looked like it had been stacked up and then knocked over in a perfect line. And I know I didn't do that.
Yeah. And you weren't stacking coins in the middle of the night?
Well, I guess they were straightening up. I don't know. It must have been, there have to be ghosts or spirits that are other than just the demonic get out. There have to be, old housemaids and other people who like to be tidy. I'm not the tidiest of people, but I asked the proprietor. He said, yes, of course, it's haunted. I don't know if it is, but he said it was.
Well, we know something's haunted because we'd had something's not wanting Tim to be able to talk to us this afternoon. We got some maybe Blackbeards were exacting his revenge.
Like, keep it a secret, Tim.
Yeah, Tim. Let's see if we can get your audio now. Are you back, Tim? We're just having some problems. Tim, I apologize. We're just having some problems with your audio this afternoon. It seems like it's going in and out. Let's try it one more time. Are you there? Yeah, it looks like we're having some buffering issues. I know what happened with Tim's audio. It's the same buffering issues that happened to Netflix Friday night.
I heard all about that.
There is a ghost in the machine. You must be the only person that's heard about it and didn't see it in person.
I did. I refused to watch it because I thought it was going to be a sham. And from everything I've heard, it sounds like it was. It was
Right.
all set up to a rematch. And so, yeah, I couldn't do it.
We've been trying to get Tim Skollion as our guest this afternoon. Unfortunately, we're having some issues and we just haven't been able to do it. We apologize, but we do want to get Tim back on again in the future. But we've just had every time we go, it just looks like the buffering hits up. So maybe we're being problems like we're having, like they did with Netflix. Only difference is we don't have millions of dollars invested into the show,
Right.
like Netflix did that night.
Yeah. But I'm going to go back and watch this to see if I see any spirits or shadows in the background.
Yeah, look for something. Hey, speaking of shadows, shadow people are a thing. And in Tim's books, in fact, we're going to have some links to Tim's website in our post after the show. He caught an image of a shadow person. And I thought this to be very interesting. Take a look at this. And Nathan can bring that up. There you go.
Now, I've heard a theory as to what shadow people are, and I find it fascinating. And I don't know if you've heard this, but some people believe that we are all in different dimensions, right?
Right.
So if you think of it as in, I'll use these papers to explain, if this is our dimension here and another dimension comes through ours, you're only going to see a sliver of the person in the other dimension. You won't see all of them. So you're seeing that shadow person for that split second or period of time as our dimensions pass through each other. That I've heard, and it sounds fascinating. Either way, it's scary as hell. But what have you heard about shadow people?
Well, I mean, that makes sense. That whole, I do, this whole thing when we discuss Bigfoot on the show, no one's ever got a dead Bigfoot or that we've seen. Aliens. What's to say these things aren't otherworldly, but they are this interdimensional intersection like you're talking about?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it explains a lot. And people much smarter than you or I have talked about it. I've heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about it and others, and it's a fascinating concept, especially, bringing it back around to the UFOs, or now I believe they're calling them UAPs. It makes a lot of sense when you think about it, why we see them one minute and don't the next. It explains a lot.
It could cover a lot of theories, by thinking of this interdimensional intersection. Hey, maybe that's something we can just start with. You're going with interdimensional intersection.
I like that.
That's what we coined here. All right. So we are going to take another short break. When we come back, we got some goofy stuff to show you. We always do at the end of the show. And we won't leave you hanging this show either. So more to come. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in about 60 seconds.
When I grow up, I want to work in a hospital.
From classroom to career, we're with you every step. Register for real-world education at hccs.edu.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
You're back on the Road Beyond podcast. Todd Duplantis here. Doug O'Brien, my co-host, joining us from, actually he's on the air over at the Eagle, Houston Eagle right now. Think of this. It's mind-blowing. We're live on HCC TV's, on HCC TV's network. Doug O'Brien, my co-host, he's live on Houston's Eagle. So that's happening all at the same time. Anyway, he's at the studio right now. I see him with his back on. He's got his headphones on. He looks real radio professional right now. But we'll have him join us live in just a second. For the past few shows, we've shown you crazy bear clips, things that are just weird. We're not going to leave you hanging this time either. This is a story out of California. Don't know exactly where in California, but get this. 4 people have been charged with filing false insurance claims or fraudulent insurance claims. Doug, have you heard about this story?
I'm back, Todd.
Yeah.
I had to do a little break on the radio.
I know. I was just explaining to everybody. Okay, in California, 4 people have been charged with false fraudulent insurance claims.
Yes.
Take a look at some video because they were looking at video. They say, hey, our Rolls Royce was attacked by a bear. Well, it turns out wasn't really a bear. I mean, take a look at that. It doesn't look too intimidating. It's a dude in a bear costume. And to make things better, Doug, they found the bear costume in one of their homes.
I saw this story and actually talked about it on the radio over the weekend. And it's like, come on. I mean, at least put some effort into it. If you're
I know.
Do it. I believe that 4 different people tried filing insurance fraud claims. And clearly it didn't work. You know, it's like when you look at a video and you're claiming to be a bear and you're like, isn't that Steve? Like, that's never going to work.
And then even make it more lazy. Don't throw it in the dumpster. Don't toss it off the bridge. Let's just leave it in the home on the floor.
It's, you know, these kids today, they're so lazy. They won't throw away the evidence.
They can't even do good insurance fraud.
Exactly.
Come on.
I mean,
where are we going as society?
It's just, I still can't believe it. Even with the bad footage, it is so obvious. A person in a bad outfit.
Bear. We are quickly running out of time. Doug, thanks for joining us and pulling the double duty.
Absolutely. I'll be back in studio next week.
Yeah, folks, thank you for being here. We'll see you next week on the Road Beyond podcast.